Welcome everybody back to my channel. It's been a few days since I've uploaded, obviously, but it's because I'm back in England now, and you can tell by what I'm wearing. Coat outdoors. Welcome back to Europe, huh? Thank you to everybody who watched all my videos through Southeast Asia. In today's video, I'm actually going to give you a comparison of the 4 places that I travelled in between Ho Chi Minh and Hanoi throughout my trip through Vietnam. So we're going to start with Mui Ne, and then we're going to go to DALAT, and then we're going to go to Nha Trang, and then we're going to finally review Da Nang. And I'm just going to give you some positives and negatives of my experience in staying in them 4 places. And Mui Ne is a beach resort town along the sea in southeast Vietnam. It's good for kind of like windsurfing, kite surfing, sailing, that type of thing. It's only 200 kilometers from Ho Chi Minh, and a sleeper bus is probably the best form of transport if you're going to go from Ho Chi Minh to Mui Ne. Now, I could give a whole different topic on sleeper buses, but out of the 3 journeys I had on sleeper buses throughout my travels in Vietnam, I enjoyed maybe one of them. But if you go to these kind of small little places away from the city, sometimes sleeper buses are going to be your only real option, and they'll be the cheapest as well. One thing I would say about Mui Ne, which is a little bit of a negative actually, is that you will need a motorbike to get around, and so if you're not comfortable on one of them, then Mui Ne probably isn't the place for you. Another little side note about Mui Ne is that, like all beach resorts, it's obvious, but make sure you go to Mui Ne when the weather is nice, otherwise there's not going to be a whole lot to do. To be honest, I didn't really like Mui Ne too much. After coming from Ho Chi Minh, spending a month living there, I found Mui Ne almost a little bit too quiet. And one thing I would say about Mui Ne is I got a little bit unlucky with accommodation. I didn't stay in a particularly nice hostel there. And for anyone who's done a bit of travelling, it's like accommodation is just so important. So if it's not great, it can sometimes ruin the trip a little bit. Although one thing I would recommend about Mui Ne, which is really, really good, is the Pineapple Coffee Shop. Make sure you Google map it if you're ever going to Mui Ne. It's just a really nice little beach cafe looking out to the sea. As you would have seen on some of my clips, I enjoyed a beer, a coffee there, and had a dip in the ocean. Yeah, overall, Mui Ne for me, okay, but would I return? Probably not. So next, we went to DALAT. Now, DALAT visually is quite spectacular actually, with the lakes, the golf course, the mountain kind of range in the background. DALAT is really, really nice, and with it being 1500 meters above sea level, you've got some really nice views with the DALAT. I enjoyed DALAT a lot actually. The climate there is completely different to other parts of Vietnam. I mean, the ideal time to visit DALAT is between December and March, and if you're not going in between them months, make sure you take a coat like the one I'm wearing now, because you're gonna need it. DALAT at night when I was there was freezing, it really was. One thing I would mention about DALAT is the food wasn't as nice as it was in other parts of Vietnam that I stayed. I mean, when I was in Ho Chi Minh, I obviously had all this, the city food, the street food, any type of food in Ho Chi Minh. And then when I went to the coastal parts of Vietnam, you've obviously got great seafood there. So when I went to DALAT, in the mountains, the food, the cuisine, nowhere near as good as other parts of Vietnam. So that's something to mention if you're a bit of a foodie and you're traveling Southeast Asia. One attraction that I would mention though, and I would recommend to go to, was when I went to Dat Tan La waterfalls in DALAT. It was absolutely brilliant, and it wasn't the waterfalls which were good, it was the kind of the park surrounding it which was brilliant. It just had loads of activities that were well worth a visit, especially if you have a family or you're in a group or something. It had all the zip lines, the little roller coasters, the nice views. And certainly one of the highlights of DALAT for me personally was when I took a motorbike taxi to the waterfalls. It was quite a funny trip, great views, and yeah, just overall a really good time. So if you're going to DALAT, make sure you check that out. My overall review on DALAT was just, I wish I went there when the weather was a bit better. It was just so cold at night that you kind of had to do everything during the day. One thing I would say about DALAT as well is also a little bit like Mui Ne, but the nightlife wasn't so good. I think by that point I was just so spoiled with Ho Chi Minh cities, bars, the clubs in that city, that after going to DALAT, it again seemed a little bit quiet in the evening, and that's because of the lack of tourism as well. And for people who are thinking of going to DALAT, I would say you can spend about 2 or 3 days there and you'll have a great time. You can see the waterfalls, you can see the lakes, you can see the views of the mountains. There's a few nice things to do in DALAT. The pagodas are really, really good. I went to a really nice Buddhist temple there. So yeah, time frame for DALAT, I would say 3 days, about enough. So, third place I went to, in between Ho Chi Minh and Hanoi, Nha Trang. And yeah, Nha Trang was really, really good. It reminds me very much of Da Nang, which would be the fourth place I'm talking about. I was only in Nha Trang for a couple of days, so it's kind of hard to give me a full review of the place. The main thing I can remember of my trip was having a really good night where I got incredibly drunk with the Vietnamese locals, who ended up paying for my entire night basically, because I was kind of a guest. So we had some cool drinking games, and yeah, just really, really good fun. So that's the main thing I can remember of Nha Trang. I personally do really like these kind of like city by the sea resorts. I think they're absolutely incredible because we just don't get them in England at all. Because you've got a combination of kind of the city life, even though these are small cities. So you've got the good restaurants, the good bars, the good food, the good nightlife. But you've also got these lovely beaches that you're on as well. And the main thing I would say if you're going to Nha Trang is just spend plenty of time on the beach. There's just some really nice bars there. And it's just so much better than going inland if you're in a place like that. I don't really give a full review on Nha Trang, only there a couple of days, but it's very similar to kind of cities by the beach, very similar to Da Nang, the next place I'll be talking about. Would I live in Nha Trang? Probably not, but I could easily stay a few weeks, no problem at all. And finally, Da Nang. And Da Nang's a strange one for me because out of the places I'd been to, unlike Mui Ne, DALAT and Nha Trang, I'd already been to Da Nang before. So I was kind of looking at it from a different point of view because I kind of knew what to expect a little bit, knew the bars, knew the places to eat, that type of thing. Was it as good as when I was there 4 years ago? Absolutely not, sadly, and that's kind of another topic as well. When I went to these 4 places, you could really see the destruction of COVID, and you could really see the lack of tourism. You can get away with it a little bit in the cities because the cities are so busy anyway, but when you go to these smaller cities and beach towns, you can really, really see the effect. And that was what was the shame about Da Nang. 4 years ago I had an amazing time there. I think I stayed maybe a month in Da Nang. So I was here for a week or so and it was great, but it just needs a few more backpackers coming in to fill them bars. I was often going in places that were full 4 years ago and they were pretty dead. It was almost like a bit of a ghost town by the seaside places. You know, Vietnam's only been open 4 or 5 months. I think month on month these places are going to start booming again. So that's hopefully what's going to happen. What I'd say about Da Nang is don't bother exploring the river too much. The beach is only like half an hour a walk away from the river, and the river I don't find great. It's like there's almost too much traffic. The bars aren't great there. The food's not as good as it's going to be right on the coast. So yeah, if you're going to go to Da Nang, just make sure you stay around the beach area and don't bother going by the river too much. One of my favourite bars in the whole of Vietnam is in Da Nang, Heaven Bar. Check it out. Again, it wasn't as busy as when I was there 4 years ago, but it's picking up live music there, really good atmosphere, lovely people. So yeah, if you're ever in Da Nang, Heaven Bar. And it's also in an area which I believe is the best, or certainly got the best potential for really good nightlife. Also, a place I didn't visit because I'd already been there before, but Da Nang is only an hour away from Hoi An, a really popular tourist destination. I'm sure a lot of you watching this video will know where it is. I've been there before, so I just didn't go there again. Overall, out of Mui Ne, DALAT, Nha Trang and Da Nang, I still believe out of them 4 places, I enjoy Da Nang the most. By maybe not quite a bit, but it's just a place I could easily live 1-2 months in Da Nang if it was busy, possibly longer, to be honest. I think it's really good. It's got like over 1 million population, I think, so it's pretty busy, and it's just got a really good atmosphere there. A great combination of the beach and also the kind of the nightlife and the beach bar scenes, that type of thing. So thank you to everybody. Bit of a different vlog, this one. I've got a jumper and a jacket on, but it is what it is. So just a quick update of what's going to kind of happen. I'm going to see how good this comparison video goes, and if people like to watch these, because I was going to make another one on the differences between Thailand, Vietnam and Cambodia, because I think I can do quite a good vlog on that as well. Well, we're actually going to start producing some London vlogs, and I'm just going to see how they go, because after London for the next week or so, I'm actually going to be going to Eastern Europe, so don't worry, I'm going to be going abroad again very, very soon, maybe in 1 week. Where am I going to go? You're going to have to keep watching to find out, aren't you? So that's the kind of plan, that's the kind of update. I'm back in England. I'm going to be doing some comparison vlogs of Southeast Asia. I'm going to be doing a few London vlogs, and then I'm going to be getting myself to Eastern Europe. So I hope everyone's going to be watching them, because I'm going to be looking forward to making them. Less work, more travel. Hope everyone enjoyed this little comparison vlog. Going to be interested to see how this goes. First vlog from England, even though I'm talking about Vietnam still. All the best. See you on the next one.